Hello and welcome to the Dream Interpretation Podcast. I'm Michael Sheridan. Yes, this show is primarily about dreams, but today it's going to be a little bit different. I am going to be talking to Nadia Tarnawsky, and her specialty for the last 10 years is course unraveling and compassionate deep possession and other things of that nature. And she's amazingly good at it. I can testify for that myself and for other people I've sent to her as a test to see how she would do. Of course, I wasn't testing her, but I had worked with her dreams over many years and had seen her level and was amazingly impressed and wanted to see what she could do. And we have an interview with her today. So what else have I got? We did our event 2 weekends ago. I called it the big event. It was Unlock the Wisdom of Your Higher Self through Dream Interpretation. And it was 3 days long and it was amazing. And we got some fantastic reviews out of it. And I knew we would because we really put the work into this. We spent a fortune on coming up with the agenda and filling in the content and making it tangible, something that you could get and use straight away. And like some of the reviews we had a special offer at the event. If you want to find out about that, you can go to dream-analysis.com. Find the links there or the links under this show for a class that's starting, 2 classes that are starting on Saturday and Sunday coming 6th and 7th of November. And there's a bonus of the bonus value is literally $3,297. We're giving away one of our classes to anybody who registers for the mentorship. It's an absolutely massive bonus. So if you want to find out about that, you can go to dream-analysis.com or book me if you can find the links. Again, they'll be put everywhere. But it was absolutely fantastic. And some people were saying, I don't think I need to do any other courses because I learned so much from your books. And on this weekend, I think I can piece it all together. That's how good the value was on that weekend. And it was totally free. Totally free. We gave it away. But you can get the recordings. That's what I'm talking about. You can get the recordings. You can sample it by going to dream-analysis.com and try it out for free. So, but of course, can you do it all with just what we gave and the books? You can do a lot. But my answer was, well, if you liked the weekend that much, then the mentorship program is like that weekend for a whole 9 months where you're learning so much about dreams, and it's so fun because you really activate your spiritual side. Anyway, it's all there on dream-analysis.com. All right, so let's now go over to the interview with Nadia. Like I said, it is primarily a dream interpretation show, but I love anything to do with the spiritual field, and this is directly into the spiritual field and talking about subjects that people rarely talk about. So I hope you enjoy it. Nadia, welcome to the show. Thanks very much for coming. Do you want to introduce yourself and say a little bit about what you do?
Professionally, in the outside world, I am a singer, which during COVID is a difficult job to have. But in the spiritual aspect of my life, I'm what you would call a shamanic practitioner. It means that I deal with energies and spirits and blockages and power animals and pieces of souls that have broken off and reunite people with them and all kinds of things like that.
I find it funny that you said in your way, did you put it, your outside world, and you said something that's extremely spiritual, which is singing. so when you're not doing your spiritual work, you do spiritual work is essentially what you're saying. Yes.
Yes.
And
so
what I find remarkable about your singing is you love songs from every different type of culture, and you learn them in their languages and all the ways they do it and the traditions around it and how they dress and everything like that. What got you into that? Because it's so unique. It's so you.
Goodness, what got me into that? It's just a magnetic. Well, first of all, I'm a child of Ukrainian immigrants, so already I'm living in America in kind of as an outsider because when you're a child of immigrants, at least the immigrant parents that I had, they were very dedicated to Ukraine and Ukrainian culture. So Ukrainian was my first language, and I went to Ukrainian school on Saturdays, and it was very, very important that, I knew about this culture. So I already knew about another culture growing up. And and then just other cultures fascinated me. But not only did they fascinate me, there were just certain songs of certain cultures, when I heard them, the songs were very easy to learn. I felt like I already knew them. I just picked it up because it was just innately there.
Innately interesting to you. I think
and innately interesting.
Yeah. Yes. If you're very interested, things stick. Yeah. And you got a scholarship. I mean, it's hard to believe these things even exist. You got a scholarship to go around. Was it Eastern Europe or what part of the world?
Actually, I got a couple of them. Actually, first I got one. It's called a FLAS. It's a Foreign Language and Area Studies grant, and I got that one in 2002. And I got to spend 5 weeks in Ukraine, going to villages and talking to old people and collecting songs and stories, which was amazing. But then the more prestigious one I got, thankfully, right before the pandemic, in 2017 to 2018, I got a Fulbright, which allowed me to spend 10 months in Ukraine. Again, doing the same thing, going to villages, talking to people, recording songs and stories. And
is it just Ukraine, or did you go out? Are you interested in songs all over the world?
Oh, I also love songs from Georgia, from Scotland, from Ireland, from South Africa. These are the songs that are the ones that kind of just grab me.
All right.
So yeah.
Very interesting.
Bulgaria.
And it's interesting to hear you talk about the pagan traditions that they have didn't get wiped out. And it was kind of the same in Ireland. Ireland's gotten overlooked many times. And so it's a steep folklore. It's steeped in folklore. And lots of, like, wherever you go, things are named after fairies. And it's still part of the language. I lived in a place called Rathlurk, and Rath is the Irish for fairy fort. Anyway, it segues nicely into why I have you on this episode. It's to talk about, the work you do, plus specifically the fact that you lift curses. And you say you're a shamanic practitioner and you were dragged into a kicking and screaming, which is interesting because I'm wary of shamanic practitioners who are not disciplined, because they can mess with people in a way that they're not even aware of, because you end up being trained, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you end up being trained in how to summon earth energies and all sorts of things to help you benevolently do things. But there's no such thing as a gift that can only be used to do good. It's all about intention. And so you have to have a disciplined mind, and you can't have negative thoughts about somebody, because you can inadvertently put a curse on somebody, the same way that you can bless them. And I had experience of this. I was trying to go back to software engineering. This is several years ago. And I was like, okay, if we want to keep our house, I've got to go back to conventional work. And I told Jackie Campbell that I was going for a particular job, and she's like, "Oh Lord, no! You need to stay working at Dreams, because the world needs that." And then I was talking to my guides later on that night, and they said, "No, she's blocked you from getting this job that you're going for tomorrow." And I called her up and I said, "Did you do this?" And she goes, "Well, you should stay at what you're doing." And I said, "Yeah, but I need food on the table too." And she says, "Okay, I'll lift it. But she couldn't lift it. She wasn't able. So I was still checking in, and they were saying, "No, it's still there." And I called her back, and she said, "Oh, well, I did my best." And I thought at the time, either she deliberately didn't lift it, and in a way, I'm really glad she put it on. But I was a shoo-in for that job. It was absolutely crazy that I didn't get it. And anyway. So I've had that experience, but I knew they could do that way, way before. And if you have the ability to project your mind, that's one thing, but project your mind and then learn how to constantly be holding a bazooka, you definitely have to be careful with your mind. Would you agree with that?
Well, I do. And I also say it's important to find the right teacher, because there, just like anything in the world, there are really good teachers and there are not so good teachers. And so, you can end up, and there are wildly gifted people who sometimes don't even know that they're wildly gifted.
Yeah.
And so they end up walking through the world and it's so simple to curse somebody. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, and you can go, "Oh, you jerk! I hope you get a flat tire." That's a curse. And so you have to be very careful. And very often, like my teacher who taught me how to do curse unraveling, well, especially when we're in a class, like she'll talk about how curses are done, and then she'll say, "Okay, strike that from the field. That was just an example. We don't want any of that to happen," because
Right.
you want to undo those kinds of things. But if you're unaware, and then you're just spewing this stuff willy-nilly everywhere, that can be truly problematic. And when I first started getting into this whole spiritual field, you get this idea that, oh, it's all rainbows and unicorns, and people are there for everyone's highest good, and they're trying to be nice to each other. And then you find out people are hurling curses at each other. Not only they're hurling curses, they're like binding beings into the curse to make it more powerful. They're going to cemeteries to look at the recently deceased to go, "Oh, this person's just recently died, hasn't figured it out. I can wrap this person's soul into it, and that'll make this curse even more powerful." And you're like, wait a minute. Are you supposed to be nice people? And then you find out that there are professional curse casters who get paid to lay curses on people. And then curses can be, tended or untended. So somebody can just lay a curse and the initial laying of it, and it's done. And then you have people who are paid to do curses, and that, like, every 6 months they're like, how strong is that curse? Should I add an extra layer on it to keep it, as strong as it could be? And it's really unfortunate. Like, for me, it's really unfortunate, because I think, well, that's just awful. And I mean, they're also, the people who are doing this are accruing a lot of bad karma, of course. But, it's unfortunate, and it's out there. So you just need to be aware, and, you need to protect yourself.
Yes. I find it interesting the way you said it, and you led into it and said the heavy stuff as well. But most of us, it's like we can throw a snowball at somebody, and it's like it's unpleasant. They received it, and they feel bad for a little while, and it melts off. It doesn't stick. And that's the way the system is designed. But when you're trained and you're used to calling on all sorts of beings, and I'm not going to say angelic beings, because an angel would never be involved in a curse, but you're calling on all sorts of beings. And a lot of people, they just call on beings rather than benevolent beings and angelic beings. And they don't seem to realize that anybody can answer that call, because you've given them permission. You're sovereign. If you give them permission, then anybody who wants can show up. And so the big problem is that when they cast their normal, "Oh, you cut me off in traffic, so I'm going to think this about you," they have a whole army sitting by them waiting to do their bidding, especially if they've worked on this for some time. And it really does mess people up. When you do course unraveling, and I've used your services, and I must say they're absolutely fantastic. And I knew the course that was on me was designed to make me operate at about 70 to 75% of my optimum. And once you'd removed it, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm back. It was astounding, the difference, night and day. And it's so, I'm giving my endorsement to what you do. You don't charge enough for what you do. That's one thing, but don't put my prices up, please. But you said about binding souls into the curse, and this is really it. And one of the things that I find kind of sad is when you get involved in the spiritual field, there's no place to go. Like, it isn't like, hey, let's go to Hogwarts and learn how to do this properly. But there is, for the people who want to get into the dark stuff, there is definitely a strong underground that has kept and retained the knowledge for thousands of years, and people find those places. Have you ever found an equivalent that's in the light?
Thank you for saying that, because I was going to mention this anyway. My teacher, who lives in Seattle, her name is Betsy Bergstrom, has been working for years in this field. And one thing I love about working with her is that the work is always evolving. She teaches a class in curse unraveling. And this is very important in curse unraveling because it's toxic work. You yourself never stick your hands in there and start yanking things. You stand very safely behind your spirit guides, and they're the ones to do the work. So, and you also set yourself up with a series of protection.
You can always go to a practitioner yourself and get yourself cleared up.
Well, and you should be doing it on a regular basis anyway, because there's always going to be somebody who attaches to us for any reason. There's always going to be somebody who hurls a curse at us, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And we can curse ourselves too. We don't think about that very often. Yes. But, you know, how many times have you told yourself you couldn't do something? That is a form of cursing. You know, oh, I can't balance my checkbook. Sure enough, you can't balance your checkbook.
In fact, we have a channeling class coming up on November 7th, and the first 5 weeks are about clearing a lot of the curses that you put on yourself, even from former lives, that are designed to block you from having that particular ability.
Yeah, and some curses are ancestral. Like, you know, very often we'll find curses that our ancestors placed on us as a form of protection. Like, you know, say you have an ancestor who was around in the 1400s when witch burning was very prominent, and they saw that they had a grandchild who was very gifted in the spiritual arts. And so they said, you know, we're going to block some of your channeling abilities. We're going to block some of your abilities to see things because I don't want you to burn at the stake. and, you know, and we're going to have that blocking ability go on through the generations. And so now that you're in the 21st century and you're not in a point in time when that's such a danger and your lands won't be taken away from you because you have these abilities and all those things, you can look at those ancestral curses and say, you know, why do I have a block? You know, or why is it every time I want to sign up for this channeling course, something happens and, you know, and I can't go, you know, what is blocking me here? And then you see, you know, great grandma just wanted to protect you. And it's not, again, those things are not malevolent, but
no,
they're
not
there
at all.
to...
They're done out of love, but they have the same potency. And it is interesting that a lot of the blocks that people have, or especially if somebody's being attacked, if somebody's been maliciously attacked, quite often the root for the attack is something in a past life. And the way the angels will protect you, if you want to get like armored up, is to heal the issue in that past life so that it can never be used as a doorway in again, which is really fascinating because it just seems mad. It seems absolutely mad. Madness, but it's true. Another thing I found interesting is a friend of mine, Jamie, gave me a dream, and I was looking at the dream, and she was being told she needed to go into this device, and it was like it had layers of protection, one layer spinning one way and another layer spinning another way. And when I channeled that, I was asking, what is that about? Because I've never seen that in a dream. And it was her guides telling her that if she wanted to contact the fairies, she needed to do it only via her guides, and she needed to be in this protective device while doing it. So I contacted her back with the analysis, and I said, are you trying to contact the fairies? And she goes, yes, I am. Yes, I am. And I said, well, if you need protection to contact them, then don't contact them, because they will happily work with the people who they're happy to work with. But if you're being told you need to be like layered up before contacting them, it's not a good idea. Is that true? But anyway, I find what I learned from dreams and seeing people's dreams is astounding about the spirit world. And I've often thought about putting a class on that is just like interlife or post-death, you know, things that dreams show us that have nothing to do with physical experience. You know, it's all about other worlds that exist, because there's such a rich tapestry in our dreams that shows that. But anyway, my question was, is it true that the fairies will work with some people but not with others? And if you're not meant to work with them, then give them a wide berth?
Yeah, they're very choosy, but like things can happen. For example, let's say you're unraveling a curse in which there's a fairy that's bound, or if you're responsible for the unbinding, then in some fairy traditions, then they owe you something. Because you've been helpful and because you have helped, you know, unwind, you know, they end up being a slave in that situation. And because you've given them their freedom, you then have like this signature of being a helper to the fae. And then in those cases, sometimes even if you haven't been somebody who's been on the radar, now you're on the radar, and you're on the radar as a helper. If your dreams are telling you need to have that kind of protection, I would listen to my dreams.
So here's a question I want to ask, since you're a shaman.
Yeah.
The tradition used to be that the person who would be trained by the shaman would be a person who survived death, like who had a near-death experience, traditionally, going back. And that was done because, okay, if you have a near-death experience, you've torn the veil, it's going to make it definitely easier for you. Like,
if I have had a near-death experience, then it's been either at a time when I don't remember it, or it's been blocked from my memory, which is also possible. I still shy away from the word shaman and kind of use shamanic practitioner. But I think the other thing that's important about that is that's not a title that you assume for yourself. It's a title that's given to you.
So you may never have a recollection of it, but your dreams will show it. But your dreams are really unique, extremely unique. I think I've looked at your dreams over, I don't know,
several years.
Yeah, several years. And they have this unique essence in them. You're always playing with the gods, and you have seats with the gods. Your dreams really show an amazing spiritual awareness that you, and one of the reasons I trusted you with doing the course Unravelling for me is because your dreams show this amazing compassion and understanding and working with animals of all sorts of kinds. Like you ride whales, you like flying through the air, not in the water, although you do them in the water as well. And all sorts of animals. You almost always in your dreams will touch an animal's forehead, and with your forehead and so on. And it's just, you also go to the other shores. So it's like, I have an interest in knowing everything about this, the physical world, and all the different cultures, what they all mean. And interestingly, culture is a huge thing in dreams. Dreams will always encourage us to retain our culture and express our culture. It shows up as the color blue in dreams. And so it's kind of, in this age, everything seems homogenous. You know, it's like we're all on Zoom, we're all using English for the most part, et cetera, and all expected like to meet in the middle. And our dreams do not encourage us to meet in the middle if that means sacrificing who you are at your core. And often at your core is your cultural identity. And the message is, you would not have come to the earth plane, had Ukrainian parents, learned the Ukrainian language, and forced that filter of viewing the world on yourself in order for you to go, well, that was a mistake. It's not. You're here to learn about yourself and increase your awareness through the lens that you picked. And if you throw the lens away, then it doesn't make any sense. And dreams always encourage it. But you are definitely a person who has not thrown the lens away. You've embraced it, which is really cool. And allow other people to see that culture through the performances you put on. Anyway, that was a
I have a question for you, actually. Yes. And if somebody, how would a curse show up in somebody's dreams if they were cursed?
Right.
And it may not be a single symbol, but you know.
So if there's an entity or something with the curse, then it'll show up as somebody like breaking into a house, or somebody, they're usually very smug, saying, I've got you, maybe they've got you into a tunnel. They normally have cut off some sort of communication or exit access to you. It definitely shows up, but it shows up when the beings are there. If somebody's just wishes something bad in you and it has no real potency, that's not necessarily going to show up because it won't last long enough to hit you. It doesn't sink into any deeper layers. But that would be like finding yourself covered in tar or some sort of dark colored stuff on you, not especially if it emanates from a high location. But it's not that common. I will say that it's not that common. The entities they're much more common because you can get them anyway. You can get them yourself anyway. And so the best way to eradicate them is to not do the things they like. Don't be angry. Don't be guilt-ridden, don't be ashamed, don't be. And of course, it's easy to say those things, but in order to fix them, you have to heal whatever it is that causes you to feel those things, because they need that lower energy and lower vibration in order to feed off you. But if they're bound to you, if somebody's put a curse on them and has made them stick to you, then they're doing it unawares, and it's pretty sad. But that is commonly what they do.
The more that I do this work and the more that I interact with these beings, it's very rare for me to find somebody who's malicious. I find beings who are mischievous, who think it's funny, like, oh, we were just having some fun, so sorry, and those are like the teenagers who are having a joyride, and
they show up in dreams. They show up in dreams as typically it's men, but men goofing around.
Yeah, they usually are male. I have to say, and and then when they're caught and you kind of like take them to task, and then like their parents, quote unquote, for lack of a better word, show up, then they're kind of like, gee, I'm really sorry, and yeah, you caught me, all right, all right, we'll leave. But the other beings that are attached to you, sometimes they're ancestral, sometimes it's somebody from your ancestral line who's again trying to help. And you're like, you would probably be more helpful if you actually let go of this person and crossed over, and then you can help from another way, and it would be a lot more. And usually they don't cross over because of shame or guilt, because when people die, they go through a life review, and they'll hit something in their life review that makes them think they're not worthy for some reason, then they get.
So, Nadia, this has been fascinating. How do people contact you?
I have a website. It's sacredcompassion.com.
I'll put them on links under the video. How could a person themselves tell that they have an issue that they should contact you for? I've given some of the clues that dreams show it, but what would be the waking things?
Say, for example, you want to take a dream interpretation course, and every time you try and take it, something happens, or you just, you go to sign up and you're like, yeah, no, I don't think I'm going to do that, or just something blocks you every time. Or it can even be like you go to sign up and you have enough money, but all of a sudden your car breaks down and all of a sudden you have to pay out like $3,000 worth of car repair.
All right, Nadia, we could keep talking, but we can't.
We could. It's been fun. Thank you so much for having me here.
All right, take care. I'll see you soon.